Welcome, Dr. Saara Haapanen. I'm so happy to have you here today. I'm going to let you introduce yourself because the way you talk about your work is so motivating, inspiring, and I'm excited to be talking to you today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. My name is Dr. Saara Haapanen with Performance is Happening, and we help humans live happier, healthier lives with a very specific focus on helping neurodivergent individuals thrive. So we do brain and body training to help you perform at your best.
I love that. And especially right now, I will say that there's a lot happening in the world. And part of the reason I want to have conversations with other well-being professionals is that I believe we're at a time where about half the country is digging deep into the stress that I will call the Epstein files and finding their own little brand of trigger points within it. And then there's another half of the world that is protecting their their body and their minds in a lot of ways by just waiting for the synopsis. And I was actually a little surprised. I was at a professional appointment a couple weeks ago, and it was a dental office. It was one of the, high level assistants. And I just asked her, I said, how are you doing with the release of all the information in the Epstein files? And her comment was, well, I haven't heard about it, but I'm sure I'll watch the Netflix show about it. And at that point, I realized that we're in a place where conversations are more and more shifting based on the awareness of who we're talking to in the world. And I believe, or I've come to believe, that our most important role in our lifetime is to learn how to navigate our own body and our mind and to learn how to find coherence within us. So, what a great day to have this conversation. And I'd love to hear where you are in the world of where we are.
Yeah. So I'm a little bit like that practitioner you were talking to, but on purpose, right? Because you mentioned keeping ourselves safe. And part of that is psychologically safe. And if I could say my PhD in one sentence, it would be controlling the controllables. And I have an understanding of the Epstein files and what's going on. One of my best friends went down that rabbit hole and her anxiety is high. She tells me a lot about it. It's affecting all parts of our life. And when I look at humans from a performance perspective or from a human perspective, I look at the psychobiosocial model. So that's looking at humans as a whole, right? Like your psychology, your biology, and then the social aspect. So who you surround yourself with, how you perform, how you communicate, and all those things matter. I've also had clients, because I work with clients one-on-one as well as organizations, that have let, and especially with neurodivergent humans, right? Our emotions tend to be kind of okay unless we give lots of shits. So really high or really low, but generally like feeling feelings a different way. But one of my neurodivergent clients really went down a rabbit hole and his anxiety was extremely high. And one of our work-ons for that week was let's reduce who has access to you. And when I say that, it's like, yes, your environment, but also what you expose yourself to. So, our goal that we came up with, and it's never good that I gave someone a goal, like when you're coaching, you have that human be like, what do you think would work? He came up with less exposure to the media, less exposure to to the news, less scrolling, et cetera, et cetera. And I met him the week later and he's like, I can't do that, Saara. Like, I really tried to stay away from the news, but it's everywhere and it's in your face. And going back to controlling the controllables, it's like, what can you actually control in your life? And I always like to verbalize it as like a timeline split, right? Every decision, every moment, you get to decide, regardless of your choice. So let's say Epstein files this way, or consciously knowing that's happening and choosing to either decide to put a bubble up, either deciding to consciously decide on focusing your energy on something else. Maybe it's like totally ignoring and going to a yoga class. And not that either one of those decisions is right because every human being is unique and they get to experience life on this planet in their body however they want. But I feel like for humans, if it does feel overwhelming, if it does feel, and a lot of that, we have to remember like negativity bias is how our brain works. And media, like right now for media, it's amazing because they have so many ways to get you interested because our brain, if you think about it from a caveman perspective, we didn't come out of the cave saying, "Oh, look at the flowers. It's a beautiful day. The weather is gorgeous." You're like, "Where's the tiger? Where's the danger? Is it raining?" Like our brain is built to keep us safe. And when we have all these overwhelming things that are going on that we can't control, our brain also goes into that state. So, long story short, for the answer to the question is I'm seeing it a lot. And I think what we can control is what we expose ourselves to and catching our thoughts. Then you have the option that's like the first step once you catch your thoughts to then decide, like timeline shifting, and then taking action on the next step. So whether that's exposing yourself to something, telling yourself, and not like toxic positivity, because that's not what I'm talking about, but deciding where your focus is going to go. So that's saying where your focus goes, energy flows. Like if you're always consistently really going down that Epstein rabbit hole, then yeah, all you're going to see in the rest of your life is all those things you don't want to see. And not that I'm saying like, let's just pretend it's not existing. It's still existing, it's still happening, but kind of the way that I like to explain it with clients is like put your bubble on and decide what you're letting. I think of it like energy, the energy that you're actually going to let in to affect you. And then also like what kind of energy are you putting out there and what can you control and what makes you happy and all those things. But yeah, that was a lot of words for that question.
Well, I think we're all trying to find our path on this journey. I think it's never been so so I'll say such a great opportunity to become aware of our bodies, our reactions, our tolerance, our past, what triggers us. I'm starting to really see that triggers can be one of the most important things of our lifetime to really start to understand how those triggers map to past events that we've lived through, how those things impact who we are and what's important to us. I'm a grandma now. I have a grandson that's 18 months old. And so hearing some of the things in the Epstein files is very motivating for me to continue the conversation because I want him to have a much more beautiful world than what's being revealed to us right now, of what's existing now. So I dug enough into the Epstein files to find my why of how to motivate myself going forward. Because many of us, I've had times in my life where I haven't had the energy to work on something big. And then I have other times where I've had this deep passion that I've found that I've whether it's come upon us like these Epstein files and what's happening in the world or other things, when something triggers me, what is it about it? Is it just because I have a grandson? No, I think it's because it's much bigger even than that. It's an injustice. It's even when we talk about your neurodivergent clientele, we should be celebrating them. And what we're finding is that those of us who are neurodivergent have been sort of marginalized when we've been the ones that have been sensitive enough to see what's been happening. And so how do we use this as an opportunity, find that bone that's going to focus our attention on something that's really valuable to our journey of learning and growing and getting to know this amazing neurodivergent mind that we have, because I think we're the ones that have felt it. We are the ones that are acknowledging the energy behind it and the ones that are tuning into it, and that's where I'm going bold. We are tuning in to that level of energy and we are choosing the light versus the darkness.
Yeah. I think also part of that neurodivergent brain is and this goes for autism spectrum and also ADHDers, this strong sense of justice. And more on the autism side, like there's always black and white thinking. Tends to be. Like you can have some gray too, but I'm just speaking like more generally. And for those individuals, it's more challenging to understand the why, right? Because our brains are very much, we care a lot or we don't care at all. And often we're seeking the information to understand why this is happening. So then you can have big picture thinking. And I think that's why it's so stimulating for us because the why isn't clear. And because of this strong sense of justice and this strong sense of trying to get a really good understanding of like the process of thinking or why it's all going on, it doesn't make sense. And especially if you're someone who cares about others or like a good human, it's really hard to get your brain around just all the garbage that's happening right now. And so I think for that reason, a lot of people are affected like more deeply, innately. It's like an intrinsic. So all my research background is based in motivation and creating climates of success. But when you look at like the continuum of motivation from intrinsic motivation to totally amotivated, and there's 7 parts in between, the closer you get to intrinsic motivation, which to get that to be high, competence, autonomy, and relatedness need to be high, according to the self-determination theory, you're going to care a lot more. And I know you said it's your grandson's reasons, but it is probably deeper than that. That you are seeing that there's so much injustice and so much just garbage that's happening. And at the end of the day, like we're humans and why are humans being treated like this? And where's the kindness and the humanity and it's just, I understand how frustrating it is. And that's like the first step. And then it's like how you manage your frustration. We can talk about all that too, but it is very, I so understand that need to be like, ugh, because we are a light switch. Like we care 100% or zero. There's not really an in between. And if you know a neurodivergent human, you'll see that. Like when we care all 100% or we don't care at all. So
We can separate.
I
Well,
get it.
what I'm coming to, and this is another step maybe in this conversation is again, I dug in deep enough and I've been hearing the squirrels for long enough that I have come to a place to see that what I believe is the bigger picture. And I do believe the bigger picture is this energetic spiritual warfare between the dark and the light. And the dark ends up being uh, going back thousands of years to those who held the money and the power. And we saw former Princess Andrew was arrested, and it's swirling around at the very top of the Rockefellers, the top of these 13 families. And my hope is that we as a people, we as humanity, will start to see the people at the top. And I mean, there's interesting, weird, like funny stuff about them being aliens, about them being transhuman. And I really think, knowing what I know now about the brain, I believe the human brain can be trained to not care, to not have empathy. And when you do that, you can talk about people as cattle. You can talk about people as disposable. You can become a person who is looking only at the resources in the world and how to exploit them for the most profit. And so, as wellness professionals, we are coming to a realization that our food has been poisoned, the vaccines were poisoned, that we have been in an uphill battle to bring health and longevity to people who were on the other side of it being given the worst possible information. And so how do we come to that level of understanding that I hope that there are people at the very top that are going to continue to stand up for good or bad, Republican, Democrat, whether it's, there's a few that are standing up to make sure that all of this information is released. And then how do we start having arrests and start getting healthy again? Helping people who are not only detoxing their body from the chemicals that have been put in the body, but detoxing our mind from what we've been told.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's such a trust, and it's sad, but like Americans trust the government, thinking that their best interests are at heart. And then you find out like our foods have been poisoned and like what they allow, even the smallest amount of chemical, what they allow if it's under a certain amount, but then they're not taking in consideration, okay, within 13 seconds, that's in your liver. People who are using these products, let's just say woman's face cream, are using it every day. So if it's very minimal amount of toxicity and you're consistently putting on that on your face and your skin is your biggest organ and all these things, it's really frustrating when you know that. And as someone myself, I have an autoimmune disorder. I've worked with a lot of females who have autoimmune disorders and ADHD, and I have a strong belief that like because of our interest-based nervous system and our go 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 go, like these things are very highly related. But when I dove deep into I've Hashimoto's, it affects her thyroid. My thyroid does not work. I found out 12 days before the Olympics I wasn't going. I was a diver. I was exposing myself to chlorine way more than the normal human should. I'm just going to go down a rabbit hole really quick. There are three things on the periodic table: chlorine, fluoride, and bromine, that kind of basically kill your thyroid. There's not a lot of studies done on this because, number one, who would fund this? Number two, by the time your thyroid is affected, you're no longer swimming or diving or in the pool so much. But I will say, maybe when I'm retired, I might do this study. But out of my own teammates, three of them have thyroid cancer, and over 20 of them have some sort of thyroid issue. And I have done my own research and I know that this is kind of a thing. So I gave myself sort of my autoimmune disease. But once you start learning and like what your thyroid does and how you heal it, I tell people we can't go backwards. Like, I met my husband through my sport. I got a scholarship to go to the United States to go to school. I traveled all over the world. Like, I would not take that back, but I did things to my body and then realized like I was poisoning it. So now, knowing that moving forward, I'm really conscious about what goes in my body. Like, no fragrances, those have phthalates. They can cause cancer. Like, even if I'm walking through a grocery store, I'm like covering my nose if there's like scents anywhere. I don't use laundry detergent with scents. So it's like, once you know, how can you do better? I always say we can't go backwards, but we can go forwards. So I know for a lot of people, like eating organic food, and then you realize like even our organic food is sprayed with this thing that somehow not is allowing the food to stay forever like this and is not going to grow any buds, but it's still organic. Um, I just don't trust anybody anymore. And controlling what you control, moving forward and trying to make better choices in your own home, in your own practice, with the organizations that you're working with. I think sharing information. I think once you know something, you can't unknow it. But being really conscious of what you're exposing yourself to in your environment, in your food, with your body, but also like on your screens, the TV. How are you scrolling? Where are you scrolling? The AI, like,
Can you get
uh,
outside? All of it. Yeah.
yeah. And it's,
And this is one thing, and I'll send it to you. We'll exchange addresses. But my daughter and I started infusing olive oil. So in where we live, we have bay laurel trees, and the smell of it. A couple years ago, I would carry around the bay leaves just to smell it because it's a smell of the forest here. And so that was really calming for me. And I was like, well, what if I put it in something so that I could, use it on my hands? And so I considered coconut oil or different oils, and I landed on, olive oil because it's in my cupboard. And so I make these little bitty jars of olive oil with a diffuser, and I would use them on my hands because I just love the smell. Well, fast forward to using I put into AI what would the benefits, and this is 4 years after the first time I infused some, what would be the benefits of bay laurel leaves, nobilis, with olive oil? It was unbelievable. The anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, like all of the different benefits of this oil that I've now seen. And so I got rid of all my lotions, all my face creams. The only thing I use on my hands, and I'm 60 this year, I will be 60, not yet, but my skin is starting, for the first time in my life, I actually like my skin. I don't have any breakouts. I don't have anything. It's just pure olive oil and bay laurel, and the smell is amazing. So I'll send you some. But that's what I'm doing too. When I know better, I'm going to do better. And so we didn't wake up one day and say, okay, we're getting rid of everything packaged, but we are going in that direction. My husband is working towards healing his diabetes. He's got type 2 diabetes, and so we're realizing for him how important sleep is. He got one of those Dexcoms, which of course the insurance wouldn't pay for. So we pay out of pocket for him to have a Dexcom so he can measure his sleep is vitally important about how his blood sugar does the following day. And all of these are things that he didn't have access to for the last 10 years until he paid by himself for the Dexcom now every single month so that he can start to teach himself about his own body. And that is the opportunity I think that we have, is to start to learn about ourselves in that way.
Yeah. There's two things I want to say to that. But the first one also being that, like, I love doctors. I train a fair amount of doctors. But doctors are educated in getting rid of your symptoms and not necessarily getting to the root cause. So for me, an example is my TPO antibodies were at 1,256. Anything above 7 is autoimmune disease. I asked her, I was like, I don't want to be on meds. I was like, what do I do for this? And she said, you take a pill for the rest of your life. And I was like, okay, whatever. I'm going to go research. I came up with 8 pillars. I implemented those. I went back a year later and she was like, what the heck did you do? Because I was at 134. Anything above 7 is still autoimmune. She's like, but how did you do this? And I was like, well, I researched and then I applied. I'm like, I would be a hypocrite because this is what I do in my business. And she's like, no, but how did you apply it? Because it's the behavioral change and behavioral science that's so hard. Like, a lot of us know what we're supposed to be doing and we're not doing it. Like, everyone knows to be healthy, you got to move your body and eat well. But there's Doritos there and someone brings so having the strategies and know that the way that you think and your mindset are going to be the driving force. And for everybody, what I say is like 1% better every day. You just, at the end of the day, if you look at your pile of good choices and bad choices, you just want to have more good choices and every day just a little bit better. So a year from now, you're not going to recognize yourself because we set up these own blocks for ourselves that are like, okay, I'm a different person January 1st, or come Monday, I'm not doing this and that. And even how you talk to yourself, the second you say you can't have a cookie, all your brain is going to want is a cookie. So instead, be like, where can I add in good? And like, I know I'm preaching to the choir, and it's easier to say, but hard to do. And the second thing, before I forget, is I used to train the president of a dermatology product that was only available in like an esthetician's, whoo, that's a hard word, office. So, and I won't say the name. Um, they were making the product here in Colorado, and he was so frustrated because they had to make a different formula that was safer but more expensive if they wanted to sell it in Europe. And he's like, what they allow here is like cheap and you're supposed to make money, but what they allow in Europe, and I lived in Finland for 3 years before I moved to Denver, um, there's such stronger restrictions because I feel like they have a better understanding of what is safe for humans and what is not safe for humans. And here in North America, it tends to be more based on where's the money at. So my big advice, always like, don't get rid of all your products, but when you're done with a product, research it and 100% if you can find something that's made in Europe, it's going to be safer than what is allowed here in America. So the products I like to use are Lumine from Finland because I have Finnish skin. My genes are 100% Finnish, but I just know that that's safer. And with someone who is autoimmune, it's like choosing what you can control, controlling the controllables. But that's one piece of advice. Like if you can get something made in Europe, I 100% recommend that over something exactly the same product made in the United States.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's really helpful too. I will also say, and I have a lot of dear friends who are physicians. I've got family that are physicians, and I love them dearly, and I don't know where they are on this journey of discovery. But I will also say that I've had this lump on my throat for at least 10 years. It's been biopsied a few times. And I've looked through my files, and it wasn't until with ChatGPT's help, with what we can find on the internet now, no one had ever told me to go ahead and start an iodine regimen. It's a goiter and it takes iodine. And I realized I have no iodine because I always thought, well, I have plenty of iodine in my salt. I love salt. Come to find out, I crave salt, and none of the salt I have in the house, including my truffle salt that I eat probably on everything, none of it has iodine. So I now am taking iodine to keep this from getting larger. Hopefully, it'll reduce it, but I'm only a month in. I was never even suggested to take iodine or to eat foods higher in iodine when that is like a no-brainer just to look on any website to what to do about a goiter. And it is
Yeah.
a goiter. So yes, in this day and age, not relying on one news source, not relying on your friends and family, certainly not relying on the next Netflix documentary, because we're also learning how the history and the stories have been distorted and told to us. I like hearing that television, the name television, it's telling a vision they want us to understand. And it's our opportunity now to start thinking more for ourselves and questioning everything.
Yeah. I love how you said more for ourselves because I believe they're trying to psychologically manipulate us
They
to
have,
have a herd mentality because what happens is if I'm throwing 100 things for you to care about, that's going to break you down as a human being and you're just going to like roll over and die. Not really roll over, but you're going to get to that point where you don't care. You're like, there's so much going on that I can't control. Like you're just going to give up. And I feel like that's kind of what they want. So then I recommend choose one thing that you really care about and go deep into that. And maybe you can have an influence. Like it's also this herd mentality thinking of like, who am I? I'm just like little Sarah over here. But if we get a whole bunch of people together and we give our energy to stuff that we care about, that's how you actually make a difference, you know? But again, putting that bubble up and deciding where's your timeline shift. Like, are you going to be overwhelmed with all of this? Or are you going to decide the one thing that you care about and go full board to that? You know, because thinking for yourself is huge. And I think being open-minded and having different perspectives and trying to put yourself in other people's shoes and not just rely on what they tell you in the media is real life. Because maybe it just might be a portion of it. And it's also like, I'm going to get honest, and I've talked about this before, but one of the reasons I don't want any part of academia is my research was very unique. I studied high-level performers in 3 countries, and I was looking at cultural things and I was looking at motivation things, and it was the first study ever of its kind. But in research, when you present, you can only present and compare to what's ever been done before. And I really wanted to be unique and say, look, like in this culture, it happens like this. And in North America, it happens like this. And a part of it is because of the culture. And I also have that strong need of justice. And like in my brain, because of my neurodivergence, I didn't know I was neurodivergent at this point. And I had supervisors in 3 different countries, right? And they're high, very high level in my field. But then you look at the data, and yes, we use the data, but it was manipulated to be able to show things that have been shown before. And I was like, yeah, but that's not, but academia has certain rules and constructs, and you have to do it this way and that way. And this is why I can't have a boss. Like I can't be in academia anymore unless I'm doing my own research, and then I'm going to do it on chlorine and the thyroid.
Yep.
But it's just interesting because everything can be manipulated. And only a piece of the puzzle, like not saying that my dissertation, which is right here, sorry, is not like I reported on everything, but also to say the numbers show what we needed them to show.
Yes. And I will say this, that I'm not sure if you've even, thought about this or if any of your clients are talking about this, but the deep dive I went into the Epstein files, I did a search for the mind. I did a search for neuroscience. I did a search for all of these words, training, learning, students, education. It's everywhere in those files. They were teaching the elites how to manipulate us. They were teaching people how to get what they wanted and keeping us in the dark for a lot of it. So this we could say is a little woo-woo, but I'm going to say that it's not. When The Secret was released, there was a whole conversation about whether to use the word energy within that secret. And they decided the world wasn't ready for the word or the term or the concept of the energy behind it. And so they took it out. I guarantee you that these elites, let's not call them the elites. I like when people call them the Epstein class. When this Epstein class that are hungry for power, control, and dominance, they knew how to get what they wanted through this power, but they didn't want us to have the information. I now fully believe that. I fully believe it's part of the secret societies understanding our brains to the point that we have. They've taken it to the extreme that they're not empathetic. So they are using this for evil instead of for good. They're using it to gain the power to manipulate the people. What our opportunity is to learn about our minds so that we can see beyond the manipulation, to understand what they're doing, and then choose our own sovereignty.
Yeah. I hear autonomy. So, self-determination theory states there's 3 basic psychological needs. Competence is one of them, autonomy is one of them, and relatedness. And with this herd mentality and manipulation, like they're trying to take your autonomy away from you. So that's the one thing that I would encourage those listening. Like, how do you dive deep into that? That's how you get the highest level of motivation. But when you realize that you are no longer autonomous in your decisions, that maybe you're just going with the flow or doing it because everybody else is doing it, or you don't, if it doesn't feel good, there's a reason. And it's usually, I feel like in cases like this, is like, are you in control of your choice?
Mm.
And I psychologically manipulate my clients and they know what's happening, and I do it in a positive way. And I tell people who have children, you can even do this with your kids. Like, do you want option A or option B? An example I use is in the playground. Like, you got to get your kid to the car. You know they're going to make a screaming fit, especially if they're neurodivergent and they're happy with playing. Do you want to run to the car? Or do you want to skip to the car? Do you want to run to the car or do you want to be carried to the car? I do it in the gym. Do you want to do 15 pounds or 20 pounds? Do you want to go 45 seconds or a minute? Like when people have choice, they're going to be more motivated. But if you're feeling at any point that you don't have choice in something, that's where I would really start to question, to be like, whoa, what's going on here? Because when you're no longer autonomous in your decisions, not only is your well-being going out the window, but like you are definitely being manipulated.
Well, and also connectedness. Let's do that as we wrap up. We have been separated by color, by belief, by political party, by every division possible. And the more we're divided, the less we can have these kind of conversations. And
Yeah.
so I'm hoping that this will be the first of many conversations that we have about connecting with each other, seeing the humanity. I believe that the world is being divided, and I'm okay with this, between those who seek only power and control with those who want to live and take care of the earth and live in alignment with flow. And I'm thrilled that we're on this journey together, and I hope others will join us and have these powerful conversations about to keep ourselves healthy and help others be autonomous and sovereign in their life thinking and humanity.
Yeah. I mean, that's all we have is each other. And we're not meant to do this whole life journey by ourselves. And I think that's what they want. They want to isolate and they want you to be lonely and feel stuck to your screen and feel like you're on this planet by yourself, but there's people around you. And often, maybe just turn that screen off and have a real conversation with another human being.
And that's what we're going to do in Colorado. So I'm so
Yes.
excited that we're coming together in Colorado. We'll be arriving, that third week of March, and I'm just very excited to meet you in person, to keep this conversation going, and to talk more about this. I think it's inevitable. I know our slides are due tomorrow, but which seems crazy because the world is changing so fast that I want that other 3 weeks to be able to dive even more into my presentation. But so excited to see you then and to see where the world is now and the community that we're creating.
Yeah, I think it's important. It was such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
See you soon.